Hi, this is Dustin with Dustin's Dollars. Today I'm going to be talking about next decade stock and specifically about Next Carbon Solutions, sort of in an overview for investors as I've started to look into it myself. Before I begin, let me remind you that I am not a financial advisor or a financial professional of any sort. All opinions that I express in this video are mine and do not represent those of any company or any other individual. I currently hold a long position in Next Decade. So basically this video should be for your entertainment purposes only, because I could be wrong about everything that I say in this video. You need to do your own research before making any investment decisions. So that being said, real quick, I have talked about Next Decade in the past on my channel. It is their main project that I invested for was their development of this Rio Grande LNG export facility, similar to Tellurian. I know that a lot of folks are more familiar with Tellurian and their driftwood facility. But they also, about a year ago, I think it was, Next Decade announced that they also have this Next Carbon Solutions, which is an entire, let's say, other half of their business that is separate from their, not separate, still as a subsidiary, I think, same company, but, whole separate division of their business based around carbon capture and storage. And when they announced this, I initially wasn't really that interested in it, right? My investment thesis for Next Decade was based around Rio Grande LNG, and that, the fact that they are also starting to dabble in carbon solutions didn't really change that for me. But recently, I'll get to the announcement. They had a concrete announcement with another company to at least, explore a project. And so I started looking into this. And so I want to present some of that to anyone who's interested, to you, the viewer. So, overall, like I say, this is Next Carbon Solutions. They say provides end-to-end carbon capture and storage solutions for industrial facilities. And, they're looking at existing facilities or facilities, I guess, that are being developed, I suppose. But I think mostly existing facilities that emit a lot of CO2. And they have this technology that they've developed to be able to, install at these facilities, and they operate it, or, are able to operate it and actually capture the carbon that is emitted, or capture some of it. And they have a little bit in their most recent 10K. Hopefully you can read this. Their carbon capture and storage is the process of capturing the CO2 at the source, compressing it for transportation, and then they inject it into deep rock formations at a safe site where it is then monitored and permanently stored. A couple interesting things here from their 10K where they talk about this is they do say they have a proprietary carbon capture and storage process that uses their post-combustion CO2 removal system. But the interesting things here is they assert that there are benefits compared to existing carbon capture and storage processes. They believe that they increase the efficiency so that they can get about 95% of the emissions captured. And they think that this is at lower cost, both for the actual capital expenses and for the actual operating of their carbon capture and storage. And one of the interesting things, and again, I'll state this, hopefully this has been clear if you watching my videos, I don't have any firsthand knowledge in these particular industries. But they assert here that they have a proprietary process that uses existing proven technology, and that they do not include, their process does not include any new equipment or technology. We have developed novel applications of existing industrial scale equipment to reduce the capital and operating expenses associated with the process applied at scale. And, they say this represents the intellectual property of Next Carbon Solutions, and that includes patents and patents pending. So they are actually trying to patent this process. And one of the nice things that or the potential future benefits, consequently, Next Carbon Solutions is technology agnostic. And so sort of as some of that technology gets better, they can incorporate that into the process they have. I thought that was interesting. Again, there's not a lot to go off of here. You have to just sort of take their faith on it, but it is interesting if true. And let's get into this a bit. In their investor presentation, they have more details here, or more let's say interesting tidbits about this, right? And so they're very clear. As I mentioned before, they're focused on large emitters today on the scale of at least 1 million tons per year of CO2. But one of the other things that they said in here is that they have not here they have existing experience within their company, that they have actual delivery experience in CCS project construction, and that they have someone in their company what must have been involved in developing the largest CCS project in North America. And I'm not actually sure what that is. I haven't. Again, I'm sort of at the beginning, or just starting my research truly into this part of their business. So I'm not quite sure what this is, but they're stating this here so that they do have this expertise in their company right now. So I thought that was interesting. And now I thought it was also made me chuckle a little bit. They're saying it's carbon capture as a service offering. That's such a buzzword nowadays, although it makes sense. And though here you go further. By the way, this is just from the Next Decade investor presentation available on their website. You can pull it up there yourself if you want to look back at this and take a look for yourself. I should probably zoom in too so you can see this better. They had this overview of all the projects that they are targeting, or all the existing sites. And I think there's a slide. Oh, I don't know if they still even have it. They had it in an old iteration of their investor presentation where they basically go over how many different sites there are in different industries that would be in their target market. And I think overall they say there's roughly 600 existing facilities that are in their their potential candidates for their technology to be installed and to be the clients of Next Carbon Solutions. But here they talk about the projects, specific sites where they have done this pre-feed, their front-end engineering and design work. And it's down here in the footnotes. Pre-feed assesses the source facility data to determine the feasibility of deploying their carbon capture in technical and economic terms, right? And so right here they are listing how many of these sites they have completed that pre-feed work, and that's sort of in the hands of the company and some sort of negotiation for whether or not they want to actually move forward with this as a project. And you sum this up and you see there are 10 of them here, plus the one LNG, which that's a bit cheating, right? Because they intend to use this technology on their LNG export facility, their Rio Grande facility. That's a bit of a tangent, for today's topic, but that was their, as far as I understand it, what they wanted to add on to their plans for their project when they refiled for FERC approval again. That I think they are still waiting on for that particular facility. But so there's 10 other projects other than their own where they've apparently already completed this, and there's 3 more they are in the middle of doing this work for them. So that tells me that it's not that there are actual folks who are interested in this. And I guess I'll jump over to this real quick to talk about, there was an actual announcement with one particular client with California Resources Corporation at their Elk Hills power plant. So they signed this agreement, and they agreed to move forward with the front-end engineering design study for this at their particular facility. It's going to take about 6 months to complete. It's somewhere in the press release. I made my own notes. And it says during, let me just find it. Yeah, during the engineering work, Next Carbon Solutions and CRC expect to finalize definitive commercial documents allowing the carbon capture project to proceed with the final investment decision following the completion of the FEED. So we could be seeing this get approved and green lighted as a project in about 6 months, and that would be pretty interesting. That would be I think big for the company. That would be their first actual green light for a project that has a path towards revenue, right? Which is good. A little bit more back on the investor presentation. If you go to the next slide, they talk about how much money they think they can make from these projects. And this is based off of sort of an idealized project. I think they are assuming 1.5 million metric tons per year of carbon captured. And it's down here in the footnotes. It's not really clear. Well, I guess there's a prior slide that talks about where they're going to actually get the money from these. And they say they're flexible, right? They're trying to find the business model. That's what it screams out to me. of basically they have three different things. They have just the actual cost, like the fees that they could charge the company for the actual carbon capture system. There's the second thing, which are these 45Q tax credits, which I'll talk about in a moment. But basically, if I understand correctly, that's, you know, I can't exactly pin it down. Again, I'm early in my research, but it's somewhere between $12 to $50 per, was that per metric ton of carbon that is captured. And then there's also these carbon credits, and don't exactly know the details on those yet. So I really have not too much else to say other than the company's on this analysis, and they're trying to look and see which one of those would they grab, and which one of those would sort of accrue to the, in terms of the tax credits and such, accrue to the actual client. But they, regardless of who gets what, right? They sort of estimated that they think they can make about $40 million per year in, sort of operating cash flow from each project, right? And so if they estimate these 10 projects, which again, that's a bit, let's say optimistic. One would expect, the fact that they have exactly 10 clients that they've completed this pre-feed work for, and to say that, well, we expect 10 projects to move forward, obviously is optimistic. Sorry, wrong slide. But per project, they expect roughly $40 million of operating, let's call it operating profit, right? They actually call it cash flow from operations minus financing costs, on $100 million of revenue, if I'm reading this correctly. And they do down here in the footnotes also talk about sort of the timing of that. And I think that's interesting, right? So this is actually per metric ton. I got my number wrong. This is $150 million of revenue, $40 million of cash flow from operations minus financing. But they talk about the timeline down here, and I made my notes. So they basically say the timeline from the feed to FID to permitting, construction, and commissioning, and to first CO2 capture, right? So that's the statement. It's a mouthful. It's all the way down here if you want to read it for yourself. Approximates 40 months. And so I'm interpreting that to mean from the point that we see some sort of an announcement like this, where they have an agreement with a company to actually move forward with the front end engineering design, assuming that the project continuously moves forward from that point, and this is inclusive of permitting and all that stuff, that we're looking at 40 months before it's going to actually be in production, be installed and operating, so that's from today. We're looking at roughly Q4 of 2025 when this particular project, or in any other project that gets started soon, could start generating profits for NextDecade. And they do have a footnote again of the first 10 projects are expected to reach FID over the next 24 to 36 months. Again, that seems like a pretty optimistic projection, given that they have 10 projects sort of in the pipeline. But who knows? Can't rule it out as a possibility. Just not my base case by any means. Now, one other thing that I wanted to mention is they do talk about these 45Q tax credits. And so in my research on the 45Q tax credits, I found this article from Forbes. This is from almost a year ago, so it may not be current. Things may have even changed from this point, right? So if I get it wrong, I apologize. Like I say, I'm still getting into my deep research on this. But it was interesting to read that they say there's section 45Q of the Internal Revenue Code. It offers a tax credit that varies from just under $12 up to $50 for each metric ton of carbon captured and sequestered. And it depends on the timing and the type of the project, right? So I thought that was interesting. However, a couple tidbits here. They're saying, the article is about, well, there are these proposals to increase that amount. And they could increase it as high as $175 per ton. So you go back and you look at this and do some math. If they are getting more money from these 45Q tax credits, that is just pure additional profit, right? There's obviously, as far as I know, no additional expense. If the US government just decides that they are going to give a larger credit for these for that sequestered carbon, then that is just incremental profit. It goes straight to the bottom line. And 175 might be a bit much, but they did talk about there's a bipartisan bill somewhere in here. They talk about a bipartisan bill that, that was $85, right? It's a popular number in both parties. And so that would represent, I'm just calling it roughly like a doubling from here. And so then that is actually interesting. We go back to the different ways they could, different commercial structures, right? What their business model is. It is interesting that this might make a huge difference in terms of sort of future optionality on profits, in terms of, does Next just install the system, and sort of gets a fee for operating it, or servicing it, but the actual facility owns the whole thing and would accrue all of the tax credits? Or are we looking at something more like these partnerships, or this even Next Carbon Solution owned options, where NextDecade would get all of the upside from those potential increases in the 45Q tax credits? One other just tiny tidbit out of here that I thought was interesting is that under the current law, the credit must be used for projects under construction no later than December 31st, 2023. And then they get the benefit from the credit for 12 years. And there's proposals here again, and again, this article was as of July of 2021, so things may have changed since then. I'm not sure yet. That would have extended that into the future. Here's one that wanted to extend it into 2035, one that wanted to extend it to 2026. So I'm not quite sure, but if the law, if nothing has changed, if the law really truly is, this is only for projects under construction no later than the end of 2023, that does give me a little bit more faith in their projection that you might have these 10 projects, or a large portion of them actually reach final investment decision by the end of next year, right? That would be less than the 24 to 36 months they said. That would be more like 18 months, because there's a bit of urgency there, and if they want to actually be able to get those tax credits. So thought that was interesting. All right, I think that was everything that I wanted to go over today. Let's see if there's anything on the chat today. Nope, nothing on the live chat. If you are still watching, let me just let you know that I usually do I do pretty much all my videos live. I usually go live around 10 or 11 p.m. Eastern US time. So if you do want to hop on, and chat with me in real time, give me some feedback, ask some questions, I am always happy for folks to hop on, and that is roughly when I'm on. Usually I try to get a video in Sunday through Thursday evenings. I don't get it every night, but I do try, just if you're interested. Regardless, thank you very much for watching today. I appreciate it, and have a good one.